This episode of the Kingston Live podcast is brought to you by Grand Onstage. Get the most out of the Kingston Grand Theatre experience with access to pre-sale tickets, the best prices, and the best seats. Tickets for individual performances and subscriptions for the Grand Onstage season are on sale now at kingstongran.ca.
Kingston has a good rap scene. It's not corny. It's not malicious. It's not dangerous. Where did we get the inspiration from? My dad was an artist here. His dad was an artist here. It's a popular form of expression in Kingston. Yeah. It's just, unfortunately, I don't think that the city views us as the correct image.
Being a musician today means being adaptive. Ever since the creation of the phonograph and the first pieces of recorded music over a century ago, the music industry and music itself is constantly shifting with changes in technology. The industry of today is a completely different beast from what it was even 10 years ago, with video-focused social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok requiring artists to excel in these new spaces where movement and virality are paramount. This is Kingston Live, and today we're sitting down with two local rappers who have seen the changing face of music promotion and have embraced the changes as opportunities to elevate their craft. Dupel has been developing his introspective rap since 2019, and in the last couple of years, he's begun cultivating a collection of music videos to accompany his tracks. Cuts like The Snow and the Sleet and Little Victories not only complement the tracks, but elevate them.
Bad little thing, what you doing here without a nice ring? Whatever you're thinking, I'm thinking the same thing. I'll go at your speed, who needs bling? We can be friends, I know you want plus some.
Our second guest is the force behind that craft. 92 Rare has been a presence in Kingston's hip-hop scene for over a decade. Starting out on SoundCloud and building a name for himself playing local gigs and opening for touring acts like Hospin and Tech 9. Off the stage and out of the studio, however, 92 Rare is the prolific videographer and producer behind Thunderbolt Labs and has spent the last several years developing his skills in music video production. Today we sit down with 92 Rare and Dupel to discuss music promotion, local hip-hop, and empowering musicians in our city. Hello, this is Kingston Live. I'm Johnny San.
I'm Riley Jabour.
And we are joined today by 92 Rare.
Hey.
And Dupel.
Yo.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. Let's start 92 Rare. So, Thunderbolt Labs. Yeah, let's get right into it. So,
all right,
music videos.
Yeah, I started Thunderbolt Labs as like an alternative for Kingston locals to have an affordable approach towards like music videos, media, Instagram reels, and things like that, because that's like definitely where the industry is headed. Without proper visuals, you're not going to get any recognition. Like you could have the dopest song ever, drop it somewhere, and it's just not going to get seen appropriately. Myself, having been an artist for 10 years, I've got like saved DMs from media companies they'll hit you up for a running gun at $1,000 plus food and travel. There's nobody in Kingston really doing what we do on that level. Like Kingston has tons of photographers, great photographers. They have a lot of media teams, but it's just too expensive for like the average person. Having an affordable video team is definitely like our main focus, and I've been getting better and better, so it's turned into like kind of a beautiful thing.
I remember when we spoke before, you see it as kind of an equalizer, really.
That's right.
Yeah, well, and that's great because I'm taking video as I'm saying this with my phone.
Yeah, there's something
because
to
there's so
this,
much
no?
importance on video content right now.
Yeah, it changes the game. It changes the way that you can look at yourself too. I think that it almost legitimizes artists, but not to themselves, but to their audience. It also gives more of a personal approach to their music.
You also brought up like Instagram and TikTok, and I think that's such a huge like music discovery tool right now that drives so many people finding new artists. And when people are trying to break through, that's such an important tool to have that eye-catching visual.
I'm from the SoundCloud era, and it's like safe to say that's dead. Like that's gone now. You can't just have like a good song go viral overnight without like massive promotion teams behind it or like a dope music video. The game ain't the same.
Well, what's the biggest difference? Obviously, everybody's doing video right now in one form or another. I imagine doing a hip hop video has got to be very different from, say, a rock video, country. What do you bring to the table?
It can be. I did a rock video, I guess, like kind of like a heavier rock video for a French band recently. I think that the main difference between my approach when it comes to like hip hop running guns or rap running guns, it doesn't take long to do them. So about like 2 hours of shooting is all I need to like make something great. My turnaround's incredibly fast. Typically with like a hip hop song, you're looking at like the longest track I've seen is like 3 minutes for like the majority of what people are trying to put forward these days for like a flashy single. I think to generalize, like my approach is just very modern and like avant-garde, kind of different than what you'd see from like a photographer's perspective. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of the media teams in Kingston that shoot videos shoot it from a photographer's perspective. Very static shots, not a lot of like movement, not a lot of motion. Definitely kind of helps capture the elements of rap. Rap's usually aggressive, so having that kind of like sets the tone. I think it's nice having like visuals that reflect the lyrics.
Yeah.
Not to say that they all are like aggressive and like lots of jittery movements, but
it's energetic just as a genre, especially with a lot of drum use. So just having like static shots may be good for some rap songs, definitely not all of them.
Yeah, you need to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
Well, I can see how that works too. We talk about the movement and everything like that, and it's definitely conducive to the music. No,
yeah, it helps.
Is there a particular video that you're most proud of? We know of some of the artists you've worked with.
I'm most proud of?
Because you did one with Keaton not too long ago.
Yeah, so that was the first one I ever did. We shot that on an iPhone. iPhones are great for like breaking into it. Although the sensor size is so small, just like the technology's there. Like I switched up to a Lumix G9 last year. Game changer. Having like a sensor 3 times the size. Plus, when you're paying like for an iPhone, you're dropping like $1,400 on a phone as opposed to dropping $1,400 on a camera, where that's all it does. Yeah, a huge difference. But I'd have to say like my proudest moment would probably be Little Victories for Jacques. That's when everything kind of changed. When I really got like an idea of scene structure. That was the first video I ever storyboarded. I storyboard everything now. Try to follow it like exactly. The use of lighting. Like I have an assistant director now that comes on every shoot. Like he'll gaff for me. Hold lights in certain directions, this, that, and the next thing. Learning lighting techniques. Everything just kind of hit ahead. It went from going like how to do it to how it should be done, as opposed to just like kind of slapping things together and saying this is a video. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of us kind of go through that these days, where you just sort of jump into it because everything's so much more accessible than it used to be.
Yeah.
You have such a more accessible starting point. And I think a lot of people come into it not necessarily from a schooled background, but just one of passion and interest, and it just grows from there. And that sounds like where you're coming from.
Oh yeah, hyper-focused right now. That's all I can think about. Me and Jacques are already planning another video. That's all I could think about on the way here.
Yeah. Nice. Well,
I was nervous for the interview, and now all I'm thinking about is that.
No, that's cool. What are you working on now? What's going on? What's the next project?
Well, we just finished up the Snow in the Sleet music video for myself. So that'll be on my YouTube channel, Summers and Society. We're going to shoot Tuesday for my track Tomorrow a Year Ago. And definitely something more cinematic, a little more story-driven, moody. And I think the more we do it, the more we get a handle of like different cool, unique ways to approach it. And like the way he learns his craft in cinematography each time he does it, the more I learn my own stuff with like performance and like
hand gestures
for sure. Being just comfortable rapping in public. Like sometimes like I was rapping out of a car window for the Snow in the Sleet music video shoot. For someone who's like just an anxious person like I am, that's a little like out of my comfort zone, but I think when it's something art related, that I don't really think about it like that.
Watching the confidence hit him was so beautiful. Because every single time we'd hit a red light, he'd have to keep going, and there'd just be a guy on the sidewalk like
just yelling.
What's happening? He got it though, because that's how you get the attitude. Because it's hard to get attitude if you're nervous.
Yeah.
And I've been in music videos before. I know exactly what it's like to like be on the spot and have like almost like a crowd gather, kind of like waiting to ask you questions, and like just because you rap doesn't mean you're like an asshole with a big braggadocio attitude. Like we're still people. So.
Well, Dupel, I know with your work, there's a certain amount of vulnerability there.
Yes.
That I think is atypical of the genre.
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah. Where does that come from?
I think it just comes from that just being me as a person. I think whenever like artistically and musically I've tried to be not necessarily invulnerable, but like, you know, a little too big for my britches, that doesn't always feel like it's like me. So even in a lot of like the more aggressive stuff that I do, because I do aggressive stuff, but there's normally a reason behind it. Like the Snow and the Sleet is an aggressive song, but that whole thing is a metaphor for different mental illnesses I struggle with. The character that I rap from, it's Carcosa, based off of an old cosmic horror god from like, you know, like H.P. Lovecraft. So a lot of that is like symbolic of artistic madness, and how that's more so what drives me on like the harder tracks rather than just trying to be like the best or just trying to be swaggy or whatever. So there's still like a creative element to help me feel comfortable. But, you know, my whole life, I've struggled with anxiety and depression and OCD. So that puts me in just naturally a very vulnerable position because, like, I don't like crowds. I typically tend to prefer to be by myself. Meeting new people is tough. It's still a struggle sometimes to be social. And especially in hip-hop, we were discussing earlier, but I don't know if there's any other openly queer rappers in town. If there are, that's fantastic. I haven't met any. And I think being open about that is a way to allow other people in this area of Ontario specifically to feel more comfortable doing that, because that's not necessarily unheard of nowadays for hip hop. Like there's like Tyler Creator, Frank Ocean, Kevin Abstract, plenty of like half the members of Brockhampton are gay or queer. And so that's not something that's new, but I think in and around this area of like Kingston and the area, it's a little behind on some things. And that style of like internet rap, as it's sort of become known as, where it's just more so like, people aren't trying so hard to be something they're not. They're just being themselves.
And that's what sells.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I love
authenticity sells now.
That's just where everything's going these days, which is kind of refreshing, actually.
Absolutely. It's you kind of mentioned like the braggadocio attitude of hip hop in the past, and having it more almost democratized in a way where people are able to talk about who they truly are makes it so much more changed and open and different and in a way inclusive.
I agree. And I think that's something that people around here don't really take advantage of, especially with like TikTok and Instagram just being at everyone's fingertips. That's a great way to just be yourself. Like a great way to be funny or like silly or artsy in your own ways. It's a generation that I'm in where like it's not that like being gay or queer is a strange thing anymore. It's like a majority of my friends are, and there's no real stereotypes that we should have to play into, you know, like why can't someone who likes the same sex be a rapper or whatever? And there's plenty of mainstream cases where that works fine. And I think it's just a matter of not letting people tell you what you can and can't do, and just do what is best for you. And oftentimes that's the right answer.
Absolutely. You kind of touched on too, like Kingston has this almost lack of a hip hop scene in a way. Like it doesn't seem as pronounced as the rock scene or the country scene. And for hip hop, your location ties so strongly to like you're kind of representing your hometown so often in hip hop. And with Kingston kind of having that absence, do you guys find that hinders things, or that there's something that really needs to be built up?
It's a hard conversation to have because it's not like we're not responsible for growing a scene. If people want to do it, we're more than inclusive. When I was just starting, it was bigger. I think that had to do with like the
And you started about like 10 years ago?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's when I started doing shows, was 10 years ago. I was probably like doing little USB mic stuff in my room before that, but that's when I got like attention, I guess you could say. The scene was probably 3 times the size it is now, with a lot of people I would consider them in an underground bracket. Not necessarily doing shows, but still putting music out and having a name for themselves. I'm not sure necessarily what happened to the scene in that sense. I think that a lot of the time people grow out of rap as a hobby, and since it is so accessible, it could be a hobby. You could get attention, but then you go away to school and start your life. A lot of people have this idea in their head that they need to get out of Kingston, as if there's something wrong with living here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Keaton touched on that as well when we spoke to him last. And I think when you and I spoke the other day, you were talking about how there's a transient audience in Kingston where they come here and they're here for school and then they disappear.
Having 3 massive schools, you get an influx of listeners for maybe 2 to 3 years, 4 years tops. You'll have like a core fan base, and then 4 years later, that core fan base is completely flipped on its head. You still have locals that like fuck with you, but it's not necessarily the same ballpark. Every 4 years it changes, and you have to meet those demands because you have new kids coming out of high school, right? They don't have the same taste as kids in high school 4 years ago. Like what's popular now is not popular when I was in school. So you have to meet those demands, and if you don't, they're just not going to listen to you.
It's so curious looking as you talked about that transient nature, because it seems like that's sort of the sweet spot. A lot of like people have shown, or research has shown, that like that's right around the time where people's like musician or like artist preferences seem to solidify. But then when they move away, if you just come to Kingston for Queens or RMC or SLC and then you take off and go back home where you came from, or if you go, that sounded wrong. I don't like go back where you came from. It's definitely not the right phrase I meant there, but go back, your hometown or whatever. It seems like people almost compartmentalize that city they spent so much time in and so much of their music formation in, and then all of a sudden it's on to the next thing or back to the old thing for them.
Most of the time nobody wants to support a local rapper when they're not in the local, like when they can't consider themselves a local anymore. It's nice being a part of something, but then when it's not like necessary anymore, it's not like a part of your like weekend routine to see somebody like that. 2016 to 2018, 2019, that was like my heyday as far as like having people, like having outreach, having bigger shows from working with larger promoters. And then like that happened. It fell off. COVID ruined everything. We had like something going in town, and COVID kind of destroyed it. But not to say that it's gone, but it's like ever since then, we've had to go.
Sorry, it's like a resurgence, I guess, would be a good way of putting it.
It's a slow start.
It is.
We've decided to try to work more hand in hand with the city instead of money-hungry promoters. Hasn't necessarily panned out for the best yet. It's more of like everything has to be in-house now. So we have to do it for ourselves, which is fine. But
when you say with the city, you talking about like grants, or what does that mean? Are we talking about the music strategy?
The music strategy
too?
In particular, I don't feel like it values hip hop in the slightest. Like, let's just take like one part of that, right? Like Spring Reverb. So that's a music festival that's supposed to bolster local artists, correct? Last year, me, Keaton, and Almond Milk did it. That's local scene, and we had a great show. And then this year, they hired out-of-towners from Edmonton to headline it. One of the guys in question has burned so many bridges in Kingston that I think the only person he hasn't really screwed over was Jacques. So we got Jacques on the show, and then Jacques was mistreated.
Yeah, it was not a fun experience.
So how is that helping Kingston hip-hop?
I have to ask, do you care to tell us the nature of this mistreatment, or should we just move on?
I won't go too deep into it, as to not bring the vibe of the podcast down, but
the vibe goes everywhere. Don't worry about it.
That is fair, but no, it's just very tough trying to get communication in. I'm a professional. I like to consider myself someone who's like, when it comes to business, like if I like you, don't like you, it's fine. We can work stuff out. But it's just a lot of like pointing fingers, a lot of things not going well, and then people who aren't really to blame getting blamed.
Jacques, you have a 15-minute set. Why didn't you sell the lion's share of the tickets?
I know. Yeah.
Why are you lining my pockets to get paid nothing but exposure?
And that's exactly it. And just like some of the shows that I've done run by, like, for example, Keaton. I've done several shows, including my own, where I've headlined the Mansion. Keaton ran that for me, and it was fantastic. Good communication and back and forth dialogue really helped things go smoothly. But if I can't find the promoter at the show I'm at, and it's my turn to go on, and I'm on stage waiting to go on, and he's not there to tell me to go on, and then 5 minutes later he tells me I'm late for my set because he didn't tell me to go on.
Yeah.
This guy's notorious too. Notorious.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, to make a positive out of a negative, all that does is just make me work harder. I know my worth and I know my talent, and it's not in a cocky way. It's just as a, I know that I want to prove this person wrong, and so I'm just going to have to go just as hard in my next release or push my stuff more. But overall, like, it was unfortunate just because I'm a big townie, I'm a local guy. And Spring Reverb was something I wanted to cross off my local hip-hop bucket list. And I got to do it, but at the same time, it sucks the fun out of it sometimes.
It's a bit tainted, maybe. Yeah.
A little bit.
Well, something we come back to in these discussions all the time is how Kingston is very collaborative as opposed to competitive. Does that carry over into the hip-hop scene as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. From what I've experienced, the majority is that a lot of people are very collaborative.
You have to hit milestones.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You can't just buy a microphone and put a song out that's okay and then have the expectation that you're a peer. It is a combat sport, like at the end of the day, but like none of us are dickheads. Like I've definitely been like super open with everybody that started after me.
Yeah, and even like there's dudes who are like, I'm 24, for example. There's dudes who are 19, just getting into it, and I love to see them grow because it's a new genre or subgenre of rap that they're doing, new flavors, new sounds, new styles of beats, new types of performances that are a lot more like angry and more so like a punk concert than a rap concert. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to do that, but I think the more you welcome new people in, the more new perspectives you'll get. And that's why having someone like Rare doing Thunderbolt Labs is so great, because when I started, it wasn't that long ago. My first mixtape released 5 years ago. And so I didn't do any live shows until 2022, just from COVID and not really knowing where to start. And so eventually I found my footing I did Homegrown Live in 22, and that's where I met Keaton for the first time, who I had known previously from just listening to in high school. Same with Rare. I knew him from listening to his music in high school, stuff that probably isn't on streaming anymore. The main reason why I stayed here, like I used to live in Vancouver. I've got family in Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa. So realistically, if I wanted to go to like a rap city, I could have just gone to Toronto and tried to do what a lot of other people do.
Become a face in a crowd.
Exactly. But I figured, why not stand out here and try and create something cool here? And at the time, I didn't have a super affordable option for music videos. And so I probably shot one music video in 2021 and then probably nothing until 2023 when Rare started doing his stuff. And now that that's an avenue that's opened up, I think it is very smart for new people to take a hold of that, because it's a very visual age that we're living in. If you have something cool that catches the eye of someone, it increases your chances of being noticed by more people, especially online. So you're not just stuck with a university college crowd that you might not have in a couple years. They can keep following you if you're active on YouTube or active on TikTok or Instagram. And the more you collaborate with local people, good people, people who work hard, and people who won't screw you over, like Rare, the more you can build a foundation.
You touched earlier on the accessibility of Kingston. I remember when we talked to Keaton, like Keaton really did feel like a big fish in a little pond. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Does it feel like that sometimes, with the hip hop scene being what it is, but having hopefully room to grow? I would think
it should.
The idea is that it should.
Yeah.
I think if when things are stagnant, that is what really frustrates me.
You mean stagnant for yourself or for the scene?
For both. Like if I'm 10 years into it and I'm still doing similar shows that I am now, I want to reevaluate, like, how can I increase what I'm doing? Because like, it's cool if hip hop's your hobby. That's awesome. It's not my hobby. It's like what I live and breathe. And like, I've tried other stuff and nothing makes me as happy as rap does. And just songwriting, storytelling in general. So I think it's important to keep the scene moving as well as everyone else, so that you don't have guys like Keaton or Rare who have been doing stuff for so long and like it feels like it's going backwards in a way.
We can't be the only people doing stuff all the time. But once again, like, we're not responsible.
That's right.
We're not responsible for like catering other people. Like I've done it in the past. And I can teach someone how to fish, but they still have to fish.
Yeah. So who is responsible then?
Them. It would be nice if the city like catered to it a little bit more.
Yeah.
If they were a little bit more open and like perhaps if there was more money on the table, or if the city itself was working. What's the best way to say this? Well,
we're at a point. The music strategy is being implemented. We have the Kingston Music Advisory Committee. Keaton's on it. So, I mean, it's still pretty early to see where this is going to go, if it's going to go anywhere. Where would you like to see it go?
Putting more money on the table for shows. Like, if the city's going to do things like Spring Reverb, if the city's going to do things like Homegrown, could put a little bit more time and patience into those things. I don't think that they were done poorly. I think Homegrown was. That might be a bit of a hot take. But when something is rushed, when the poster comes out a week before, Spring Reverb's like a few days, correct?
Yeah, it's over the course of like a weekend.
4 days, something like that. Yeah.
Homegrown's a single night. So you're taking Kingston's live audience that caters mostly to like indie stuff, cafe workshops and rock bands, and trying to like spread like for what it's worth, like kind of a smaller audience around to that many shows in one day. I don't think that that's an effective way because Homegrown's a way of getting more people onto the scene, putting them on and showing them what's available. So doing it in almost a rushed format like that, someone's going to get left out. It just seems like a lot of the time hip hop's kind of like left off the table, or at the very least, like not put as priority when you have guys like Drake is like a huge revenue income for Toronto tourism. Hip hop's like what's in right now for like younger people. Yeah. If they really want to subscribe to that lane, it's probably one of the better ways to do it. I'm not saying that other people don't deserve their roses. Kingston has a great rock scene for a reason. It has a great indie scene for a reason, but we're out here too.
I totally agree with those points. I think as well, with the university population we have here, yeah, it does fluctuate, but like more, I don't want to say mainstream or modern, but like a more diverse showcase of what Kingston has, especially including like the electronic music scene, is also very overlooked. And I know, being around university age myself, this is what a lot of us listen to, and a lot of people just don't know that is here. And at the same time, when we do the big shows, it's always for either nostalgia acts, out of town people. No one's putting in the effort to like find someone from Kingston and be like, you are the guy, or you're the person who we're going to showcase for tonight. And it feels very much so like being farmed as an artist, from like myself anyways. When you do a show and the headliner requires the openers to sell all the tickets just because they're locals, and they don't show up for sound check, and they don't show up for the show until it's like 5 minutes before their set, why not go with someone like Keaton or Rare, who are like, they're game players, they're team guys. I've been at shows where Keaton's headlined it, he's been there for the whole thing or the majority of it. Or even like just my own show that I ran at the Mansion for my Big Vibes drop in January. Keaton was there helping me every step of the way. He was, taking care of a lot of stuff so that it wasn't just for, me to worry about. And like, it was a passion thing. It wasn't a business thing. It wasn't something that was made with the intent, like, yeah, it's great to make some cash, but you can't build Rome in a day.
And from that perspective, it might seem like crybaby syndrome. Like, why should the city help us? Like, that's definitely something. But it seems like they're trying to when you have things like Spring Reverb happening. But why is the headliner out of town? So it's to say, like, moves are being made for sure. They're just being made in the wrong direction. That being said, there's no reason that we can't do a lot of these things ourselves, which is why we do. Yeah. But you can't help but wonder how things would be if the city backed us a little bit. It's a music city. It's always been a music city. Everybody loves the scene here, and the people that are like kind of subscribed to the rap scene know like what it is. Like, Kingston has a good rap scene. It's not corny, it's not malicious, it's not run by like kind of like a violent attitude, it's not dangerous, it's friendly for the most part.
It's kind of like every other music scene in Kingston.
That's right.
Almost. Yeah, exactly.
Because where did we get the inspiration from? It's like Kingston solidified. My dad was an artist here. His dad was an artist here. It's a popular form of expression in Kingston. Yeah. It's just, unfortunately, I don't think that the city views us as the correct image, especially with some of the more recent moves made. You can tell that it's not necessarily something that they, because even the artists that they put on very heavily, it's not hard to differentiate pop music from hip hop, yet it seems that it's being hand in hand, like it's being put in the same categories. There's plenty of rappers here that could fill a bill, that can rap for 45-minute sets, that have their chops. You have different genres that involve perhaps like 2 16-bar verses, a hook, and then a lot of the time like symmetrical lyrics where it's not necessarily a mouthful of words, but you have like the amount of talent it takes to do, well, not even talent, but like it's a skill form. It takes a lot of practice to get an hour set down when it's like word salad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So without shitting on anybody, it's hard to discount the rappers in Kingston for what they are, because I've been to other places, garbage, but like Kingston's just got such a great scene. It's crazy. The people that I started with especially.
Well, we'll come back to this. I think it's time to drop a track.
Sure.
Before I forget to drop a track. What are we going to hear?
We're going to hear Geeked by myself featuring 92 Rare.
Hey, Dupel.
Bad little thing, what you doing here without a nice ring? Whatever you're thinking, I'm thinking the same thing. I'll go at your speed. Who needs bling? We can be friends. I know you want plus some. Friends getting wet, need a plus one. I ain't here for a long time, what's up? But you're more than a one night duster. You're all that I want. Tell no lies, you're all that I need. Air in my lungs and a pipe for the speed. I'm no nerd, but babe, I'm geeked. We say more when we don't speak. Early morning, late night heat. Yeah, you're all that I want. Tell no lies, you're all that I need. Tell no lies, top 3 that I seen, and you ain't number 2 or 3, know what I mean? Classic, all golden on no roses. Rare how you real in a room full of posers. Rare how I feel when you swoop into focus. Best I ever had on the Bluetooth boats. You the Red Sea, little girl, I'm Moses. You get a nihilist, trying out hoping. And that big fucking smile. Take me for a girl on E4 miles. Doing 200 down Commodore's Cove. Thinking about timelines, I love and fake clothes. Forged on a stove, universally congruent. I love what we have, and I'm scared if we lose it. That I'ma lose you, and each root that you grew. Bad little thing, what you doing here without a nice ring? Whatever you're thinking, I'm thinking the same thing. I'll go at your speed. Who needs bling? We can be friends. I know you want plus some. Friends getting wet, need a plus one. I ain't here for a long time, girl. What's up? But you're more than a one night duster. You're all that I want. Tell no lies, you're all that I need. Air in my lungs and a pipe for the speed. I'm no nerd, but babe, I'm geeked. We say more when we don't speak. Early morning, late night heat. Yeah, you're all that I want. Tell no lies, you're all that I need.
Ah shit, kid, you looking at who next is. Time to out the pocket, bullet strip, get your neck slit. Hex drum and heckle dumb rap, have your rep cut. Recognize the goats that any head like assess blunt. West aesthetic check, made him play church. Yeah, like any for stained shirts, better claw back. Couldn't calm weather, praise storm, same story. More switching like homies you killed for. Rare form, boy, done here, let it my locks click. Little devil on my shoulder, kept the Ouija board flip. Head trip, dead letter trying to spark shit. Bitches look surprised, do they browse what I art? Just dart spitter, I just want to kill you, keep the carcass. Bullet for the rappers, too stupid to duck the marksman. Ink wheel full of arsenic, what a carload. Monte Carlo wants some med blocks, got a barcode.
Bad little thing, what you doing here without a nice ring? Whatever you're thinking, I'm thinking the same thing. I'll go at your speed. Who needs bling? We can be friends. I know you want plus some. Friends getting wet, need a plus one. I ain't here for a long time. What's up? But you're more than a one night duster. You're all that I want. Tell no lies, you're all that I need. Air in my lungs and a pipe for the speed. I'm no nerd, but babe, I'm geeked. We say more when we don't speak. Early morning, late night heat. Yeah, you're all that I want. Tell no lies, you're all that I need.
Nah, for real though. For real. I'm just thinking about you, baby. No one else, just you. Every day, all day. All day, man. Yeah.
This episode of Kingston Live is brought to you by Grand Onstage. Grand Onstage takes you beyond the regular Kingston Grand Theater experience. It's a subscription option that gives you access to pre-sale tickets, the best prices, and the best seats. That means you can customize your own individual package starting at just 4 performances. Want to bring friends? Subscriber pricing applies to their tickets too. And if your plans change, just exchange your tickets for another performance. Tickets for individual performances go on sale June 24th. You can purchase both at kingstongran.ca.
You had mentioned talking about homegrown and how we were kind of talking about this before you arrived. Homegrown is it's almost siloed in a way where, like, if you want to see this genre, you go to this building, this establishment this night. If you want to see this genre, it's this building, whatever. You don't see an artist of one genre opening for somebody of another genre, not just at Homegrown, but just like anywhere. You never see like a rock band opening for a hip hop artist, or you don't see like country opening for electronic or something like that. Do you think that would help with the discovery or just the representation of hip hop and rap in Kingston, of having more spread out for stuff like Homegrown?
Yeah, there's nothing more authentic than like a typical open mic fashion. One guy's playing guitar, another guy comes up and raps, another guy does like slam poetry. Those things are exciting. Yeah, they're interesting. Someone comes up and does comedy, poorly or otherwise. But those nights are the best. I remember 2014 when like the Mansion had an open mic. It was packed. Like, those were fun. Yeah. So, like, to say that, is that a possible format, or is that an exciting format? Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And then you have Homegrown that has, what, like 11 acts, one after another. Yeah. That gets stale.
Yeah. I think for me, my first Homegrown was one of those types of shows. I went on first, and then afterwards Melancholy Caravan, who are a great rock band from Kingston. They went on afterwards. I think Keaton went on afterwards. And then they closed with a couple rock bands I can't remember the name of, but they were also very good. I stayed for the full show. It was my first show being a part of. So it was a great experience. Done more. Yeah. But I think, like, you also get a lot of like cross between the different audiences when you do shows like that. Like, I cut my teeth doing the open mics at Muziki, and it's even something I'd go back to if I wanted to. Like, it's every Tuesday. It's great for beginners, and it's great for people who are doing it a while, but I would go on there. People would do 15 minutes of like super intricate artsy guitar that I couldn't even fathom doing myself. And then I would hop on stage and I would do my funny little raps, and then the guitar person would be like, you know what, you're really good. You know, what's your name? And we would start a conversation.
And the community grows.
Exactly. Like, some of my best friends, like Cow, is an electronic artist, but we've collaborated, we've fused our styles together to make something different than anyone else is making here. And that's super possible for other people to do. We just need to realize that we can do it. And once we know that and we break those walls down, it'll be a lot easier for people to just be themselves.
For sure.
Yeah, I really like that you guys said that, and Rare talking about like open mics, and you get so much variety, and I've seen that too, and it makes for a great evening. And I think about, like, I remember years and years ago going to a metal festival, and I love metal, but I remember after like the third or fourth band, my buddy said to me, I forgot there was a band playing. Everybody just went so hard for so long, and you just get numb to it. Just having some variety.
Atmosphere and energy.
Yeah. Just so we're all in agreement that we should have cross-pollination of
absolutely 100%
performances. Yes.
One of my favorite playlists on Spotify is called Pollen, and the whole point is that it's a genre-less playlist. So there's Tyler and Steve Lacy and Pink Panthers and, you know, probably Beyonce, and like a mix of a bunch of different stuff. And the really cool thing for me, because of the style of rap I do, is not necessarily the like rap that you think of when you think of hip hop. Like, not everything I do is super like based in boom bap or whatever. There's some West Coast influences, there's some Midwest stuff in there, and there's some like bedroom pop, there's some alternative stuff. I've done raps with acoustic guitar in the background, and it's not anything groundbreaking. It's just stuff people don't really do here. And when like it becomes that, you don't look at it like, oh, I'm a rapper, I have to sound like what a rapper sounds like. And you could be like, no, I'm a rapper, but I really, really like listening to Boy Genius or Phoebe Bridgers. Why can't I rap on something that sounds like that? And the more that you do shows with other people of different genres and different bands, the more you can collaborate, and the more, like, I would love to even open up for a show for one of the bigger rock bands here. Like, it's not necessarily going to be a deterrent because my energy is always very high. It might be different music on the surface, but if people enjoy good music, they're going to enjoy it.
Definitely begs the question, like, why hasn't that ever been put forward by like the powers that be when it comes to those things? Obviously, like keeping all the money in-house is important too.
Is it the powers that be though?
To an extent. I mean, to really like approach these bigger artists, you need to have like a marketing team. You need to have someone who knows how to format an email. Like these are all like skills that have nothing to do with owning a microphone and knowing how to write and knowing how to perform live. It's at that point where like rap is these days is all about being a one-man army, one-person army. You don't realize what you're getting into until you look at like, oh, like litigation. Like I need to like understand how to like market myself. And then that being said, it's also a numbers game. Like if you make music for yourself and people like it, that's great. And like that's probably the most important part of like finding yourself. But if you don't know how to sell your soul and promote yourself like shamelessly, you're not going to get the attention to get the numbers. Without the numbers, nobody thinks that you're worth a damn, and they're not going to put you on a show.
Fair enough. You got somewhere you want to?
I don't know how to segue this, but also I'm just going to ask a whole new question.
We're not on the radio. We don't have to segue.
As an artist who is bilingual in hip-hop, I always find that really fascinating because hip-hop is so important with wordplay and double entendre and finding how words fit together but also have these different meanings and stuff. Do you find having literally two languages to draw from, you've kind of got twice as big a pool to put together all of these words, and that's not an eloquent way to put it, put together all these words, but do you find that it creates a unique taste to your music, or do you find that changes your approach versus a monolingual artist?
I think so. I'm not necessarily saying like I'm a self-taught French speaker, like aside from school, but my parents were born Anglophones, even though my grandparents were French Canadian. So my French is different than someone who lives in Montreal. But that being said, I listen to a lot of Montreal hip hop. A lot of it is just a mix of French and English. Like there's a guy named Kuriaz I've been listening to for upwards of 10 years probably at this point. He's amazing. And one of the criticisms he gets from French listeners is that he says too much stuff in English. But there's so much stuff you can rhyme in English and in French. The tough part is with French being a different style of language, like it's a Romance language, English is Germanic. So there's different ways of conjugating things and different ways of saying things, like rolling my R's. It sounds different on a mic, and I've been toying and playing with that a little bit. I think it absolutely does give me more to draw from, but I'm still learning how to take full advantage of that. I think my goal at some point would be able to do like a full project mostly in French, but then that's just like another goal to set for myself, and you're never really at that peak level that you can be at. There's always somewhere else to go with it.
I think that's really cool. I've been really fascinated by like music of languages that I don't speak.
Yes.
For a while, I was in an interview with the Arkells once, and it was just before they put out that song with Coeur de Pirate, and they were saying, Max was saying how he used to listen to like French music when he was just reading, because if he put on English music, he'd be listening to the lyrics while reading a book, and he would get so distracted. But putting on French, he's like, I don't speak French, I have no idea what's going on, so I can follow this, but hear two things at once.
That's an interesting strategy.
Yeah, it's a whole,
cool.
like, it's two different kinds of your brain, and I find it so fascinating.
Yes, cool. Well, especially with the amount of international people who live here now. There's plenty of rap coming out of India. That's really cool. A lot of Hindi speakers. And like personal friends that I know who speak Hindi and would rap in Hindi and want to get started on that. I think the audience is here for French, English, Hindi, Spanish, whatever fits yourself. People might not totally understand it, but like you'll find an audience for sure.
I always love hearing music in other languages because you get different emphasis and different sounds, and it takes the vocals and the music in a different direction, places you would never start from or arrive at if you were performing in English.
Yes.
Like, what is the emotional intent?
Exactly.
Yeah, well, even something as simple as, like, if you want to compare English to Japanese, where the stresses are almost inverted, you're by nature going to get different music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is true. I do see that, yeah.
Even just the way the language flows, like this is the nerdiest thing I'll ever confess to on a microphone.
Oh, please do.
I'm a huge wrestling nerd, and
me too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So here we go.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good.
So when I watch New Japan, I used to watch it. I haven't watched it in a while because AEW just signed all the best New Japan talent.
Yeah.
But when I would watch New Japan, I would watch it in Japanese because I just can't stand the sound of Kevin Kelly's voice.
Kevin Kelly is so annoying.
He's
so
the worst.
And Don Callis, if he was on there too.
Yeah.
But it sounds cooler too when they do all the introductions in Japanese, and like it's a different way of showing someone as like a huge superstar. Like they do other sort of stuff that we don't hear.
Yeah, there's like it's something about the enunciation, the low
the
rumble.
excitement.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Super duper.
Yeah.
I don't think we got into wrestling before. I think it's amazing that went 5 years without you talking about wrestling on the podcast.
We've gotten into ghosts, we've gotten into tunnels, but it took this far for us to get into wrestling.
Wrestling and rap go hand in hand. You don't even know.
Dude.
Like what West Side Gun's doing right now with like Fourth Rope and stuff, and then
all of his like the intro samples too.
Yeah, the
just
intro
being,
samples,
like announcers. Yeah,
and then like Sexy Red was just on NXT.
Yeah,
and, like
Bad Bunny blowing up in
Bad
WWE.
Bunny. It's a good time to be a rapper. And
I mean, Swerve Strickland, AEW champ.
Swerve Strickland is a rapper and a wrestler, and John Cena was also that. And I think that's such a cool, because there's so much like cutting a promo in wrestling very similar to doing a freestyle in a rap, because that's a lot of times it might be off the top of your head. You have some bits memorized, but not all of it. And it's a lot of working with crowds, and like you might come in talking as like a good guy in wrestling and the crowd might just boo the shit out of you and you have to readjust.
I never thought about that before. It is like punchline heavy.
I really want somebody to sample The Ultimate Warrior now.
It could happen. The rocket ship to the moon. I sampled Dusty Rhodes on a YouTube freestyle that I did.
Hard Times, Daddy?
It was the Hard Times one. Yeah. It was. That was, I think I remixed, it was either... Oh God, it was either a Drake song or a Freddie Gibbs song, but it was for promotion for my Big Vibes thing, and I think it was at the end of it. It fades from a Drake and J. Cole song. I just can't remember the name of it right now, and it fades from that into the Hard Times promo, just because there's so much energy in those promos, and like.
They sound cool too.
Yeah, they sound so cool. Yeah. You know, especially the older ones where there's like little fuzz on the microphone and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of rappers who mix like basketball and hip hop, obviously. You know, soccer, you might see like people in England, rappers from England, do a lot of collaborations with different like European football players and stuff like that. And I think hip hop is just such a universal type of music that a lot of people don't really realize, because you don't need a whole lot to start. Like the best rappers ever started on street corners and on just cardboard boxes. That's why you see other countries like Korea or India who have larger rap scenes and they can make it their completely own thing and fuse it with their own culture. And it's very similar to sports like soccer, where you don't need a whole lot of equipment. Sure, it helps, but like I started off rapping in my friend's basement with just a shitty little blue snowball and some beats I probably shouldn't have had. and that lays the foundation for something better.
Yeah, it's nice when you don't have to do a load in.
Yeah,
you just show up at the venue with the USB stick and you're ready to go.
Doing like crossover shows, like I've done some shows where I've been a part of Cacao's set, and he does it with other bands and stuff. And having to do load-ins even just for him, like his speakers, his lights, his piano, like, Ricky, I love you, but I don't know how you do this so often. It's a lot of work, and it's something that I definitely took for granted until very recently.
That's why roadies were invented.
That is true.
Plugging a 412 like that one over there, that is not fun.
No.
What's the biggest difference between how the community views the hip hop scene versus the way it actually is?
I don't think that there's too many differences. People are pretty authentic here. What you see is what you get, for sure. It could be misconstrued that we're not doing things, if that makes sense to you. Like it could seem like we just do our shows and we stick to ourselves, but we don't. There's a lot of outreach, and I think like another issue being that it's so small. And it sucks that it is. It could be bigger, but you got to look at it for what it is, right? Kingston's not the biggest city. There's not a lot of venues that are willing to work with like smaller guys, smaller ticket amounts. There are venues that do that, but some of them more recently kind of crossed hip hop off the list, I think.
Yeah.
And then the venues that do want to work with us are so small that it's hard to pack a crowd in there to make the money back. It's not undoable. There's just so many odd variables in Kingston. Like I said, really great hip hop scene. Just not a lot of availability to come and see it for whatever reason. It also doesn't help that like a lot of the time, like the bigger shows that we have here, like I've opened for like celebrities in Kingston, which was awesome. Opening for Mobb Deep off my list and stuff like that was huge. But even that, like the promoter made the lion's share of the money. So like what is Kingston really getting from a promoter coming here, making tons of money off of the artist's hard work and then leaving afterwards? It's nice being involved in that to say you were, but after you do that for 8 years, you're like, what am I even doing? Because I thought that opening for Hobson in 2017 in stages in front of 400 people was like, oh, this is it. Everybody's going to know who I am now. And nobody did. It helps a little bit, but it didn't solidify anything. And then I've done shows like that at Alehouse and stages afterwards too. And it kind of gets to this point where it's like, I don't think that this is really doing anything for me anymore. Definitely takes away from like what I started with, was just kind of like doing it for myself and trying to see like where I could take it. And then you take it to like the heights of like where it can go in Kingston without having to like now I need $5,000. Now I need to pay 5 artists. I need to pay a DJ. I need to pay for security. I need to pay for the venue. I need to make sure that everybody's taken care of. And I need to do a half an hour set. So as far as like what does the community expect from us compared to what do they get, I think that they get exactly what is being delivered. Like there's no smoke and mirrors. They might just see it from a different perspective because they're used to a show that's backed by a promoter that has $50,000 from perhaps exploiting people for 10 years straight. Not to say that like the people I've worked with all do that, but the promoter game's dirty.
Yeah.
And there isn't one in Kingston. There's no major promoter in Kingston. Yeah. I thought that the city was going to try to step up to that. I know that there are major players in the community that do those sorts of things, but it seems like they're more or less sticking to artists that they have kind of groomed, which is fine. They need to make their money. I totally understand that, and I've definitely done shows with them or around them or being there to see it. But I know what I'm looking at when I see someone who's being put forward. Not to call them a plant, but when you don't have to worry about paying for these things out of your own pocket, it makes it way more accessible to the extent that like you might even think that this is just how it is. Yeah. And it's not.
It's like people who might be more privileged, I would say, and have more things at their disposal to be able to make more of an impact right away.
Not to say that it's their fault for having those things. That's a lifestyle I'm sure that anybody would want to have.
Oh, absolutely. But
it definitely changes. It's marginal, right? Like your people are looking at them. Not to say that it's like anyone in particular, but like this is something that happens in all music genres, right? You have people that just come from better circumstances.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So they're looking at them like, this is how it is. So if anybody doesn't achieve this, then they're not worth my time because they're not doing shit.
Yeah,
but
that creates in hand a fair amount of stigma towards, like, I know growing up, like high school, being a Kingston rapper was like, you know, kind of snicker and, you know, chuckle to yourself a little bit.
And then we brought it to great heights.
Then exactly. And I had someone come up to me and they're like, you're not a Kingston rapper, you're a rapper. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? But like, it's so much harder to do cool shit when it's just me. Or if it's just Justin or just Keaton, because like I can't speak for absolutely everyone, but my connections are very limited, and a lot of stuff I need to make myself and need to introduce myself to people. It's less, you know, people coming to me and more so me going to other people. And so I think I don't know what the solution to that would be.
For what it's worth, we do plenty.
Yeah.
Like we do plenty. There's no need to have a show every month with the same people on the bill. There's no need, like we come back every time with something new, something exciting. We have new songs to perform for it. Music videos are being made to kind of like showcase artists in that sense, to maybe make it more attractive, make it look more modern and cool. Like this is somebody that you can support.
Yeah.
But it's just tough. It's tough out here. It's tough out here.
It's tough in these streets.
But it's not going poorly. Like to say that this conversation reflects a community that doesn't have any plans in motion is false.
The fact that we're here in general is a great step forward.
We got things going on, and we have our own plans that like we'll carry forward without any like help from external forces. Things are gonna get better real soon for the hip hop scene, and we'll do it for ourselves, and it'll probably be better for that. At no point was any of this conversation a pity party, woe is me, just highlighting some of the adversities that we faced as artists here.
And speaking on real life, real experiences.
So everybody's in agreement that we need to cross over genres with performances, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be cool as hell.
Yeah. I think we should get a wrestling event. And we'll get Keaton to do the halftime show, and it'll be great. It'll be awesome.
I am so down for this.
Anything else we want to cover before we wrap it up?
No, we just really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you guys. This has been great, guys. Thank you. A fun time.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for coming in. People want to find you. How do they do so?
I took all my stuff off Spotify and streaming networks because it's disgusting and criminal, but you can find me on YouTube. I've got really cool music videos. I'm on Instagram at 92 is rare, and Thunderbolt Labs is TNDR Bolt Labs on Instagram as well. If you want to catch like things that I'm working on, I work with a lot of local artists, do a lot of Instagram promo reels. I have a second company called Summit Media that's a little bit more commercial, but we'll be doing cool things as well. So check me out.
You can find me on streaming services because I have no shame. At Dupel, Dupel. I'm on TikTok. I don't really use it a whole lot. You can find me on YouTube under the Summer's End Society, which is just my own personal brand. And you can find me on Instagram as well under Jacques Dupel and under Summer's End Society. Summer's End is a little bit more of the professional music side, and my own personal one is the Dupel one.
And we'll put links in the descriptions
of course.
And all that as well. Yes. Thanks a lot, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
This has been Kingston Live. We encourage you to rate us on your listening platform of choice and subscribe where possible. For show listings, artist info, and all things Kingston music, check out kingstonlive.ca. Kingston Live was produced in Kingston by Soundwise. Hosted by Riley Jabour and John Sanfilippo. Writing and research by Peter Sanfilippo. Executive producer, Rob Howard. Kingston Live is a member of the Canadian Live Music Association. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at podcast@kingstonlive.ca.